And the meeting is being recorded. I don't know if you got that message. I just got that too. So we're going to record it today for anybody who might not be able to participate today. And we did a legislative session recap and overview of several items that we took up this year at the government relations meeting a couple of weeks ago. But we thought this would be a good medium through which to offer the update for anyone who might not have been able to join us at that meeting or anything else so far. So thank you all for taking the time. And I was going to mention several items and talk about some big things that we took up during session that we just finished in April, and then leave plenty of time, leave some time open for questions and all of that for any of you who have any questions. So thank you again for being on, and we appreciate it. And so just to kind of get us started, let me kind of kick it off with an icebreaker a little bit here. I did a lot longer trivia to everybody who was here in person, but we had a little more time, so I'm not going to do all of these, but I wanted to see how up to speed everybody is on their Florida knowledge and history and everything. And I'll start with what I think is an easy one. And Lake, you can't answer these because you know all of these. So
hey, I should be able to. I had a hard enough time getting hooked up this morning. I don't know why. It took me almost 6 or 8 minutes to get hooked up, turned on, and in here. So go ahead, Clay. Throw another one. I can answer that one for you.
Well, we'll throw one out. We'll see who can get it here. And we gave out candy at the real meeting, so we'll have to send you something if for whoever gets it. So does anybody know how many counties there are in Florida? Anybody?
67.
60. Rolling. There we go. 67. Okay, very good. So here's another one. Tallahassee was chosen as the capital of Florida in 1824 because it was the halfway point between which two cities? And as a hint,
Pensacola and St. Augustine.
Patrick got it. Yeah, the legislature every other year they would have session in Pensacola, and every other year they would have it in St. Augustine. So every year they were back and forth between these two cities when the population center was all in North Florida. So they said, we're tired of doing this. So they started with horse cart and everything. And they said, we're going to meet in the middle. And that's how Tallahassee became the capital of Florida.
Okay, Clay, I'm going to clear that up. One quick statement to you. Actually, the reason they didn't is because the ones from Pensacola and would come around the peninsula, and the ones from St. Augustine would go around the peninsula to come in. And the year before, there was a shipwreck, and it killed a number of them. And so they said, we got to do something different. Yeah, that's what happened, sir. How about that?
Well, politicians are still making shipwrecks, so not much is.
Oh, that's for sure.
To the point. So,
I just want to add to it. It was you're right with all the rest of it, but there was actually an event that happened. It was a shipwreck, and I think there were members of the legislature that died. So
which is not good. We're a little partial, but that's not good. One or two others real quick. On March 3rd, 1845, Florida became what state of the United States as far as admission as a state? Does anybody know which state we were? What's that? Was that Beth trying to chime in there? Anybody know? All right. JJ wrote in and said 29th. You're close. It was the 27th state. So very close. Last one. Florida was previously called La Florida. Does anyone know what La Florida means? And then as a bonus, what is Florida state flower? And I kind of gave it away by saying that, but anybody know what La Florida means? Where we have our... What's that? Somebody might have been trying to say it's land of flowers. And then does anyone know our state flower? The orange blossom. Orange blossom is our state flower. I actually thought it was the magnolia before I had looked that up. So, well, just a little bit of trivia there to get started. So, well, let me go ahead and get into the update here a little bit. There was some interest before we had at the government relations meeting to touch on the minimum wage amendment that has already been approved by voters previously back in one of the previous elections. And so I just wanted to mention, and I can email this to anybody, many of you may already be familiar with this, but there had been a little bit of confusion about how that works. And when I speak about this, it's not advocacy necessarily, so please understand that. I'm not saying how, getting into an editorial about what folks should have voted for and all of that. But the fact that it did pass, I think it's necessary to clear up a few things. So it does raise it to a total of $15 per hour, but that total is not going to be reached until September 30th of 2026, because initially we started with the minimum wage was $8.56 in 2020 when the amendment was passed, and then now it's up to $8.65, as most of you know. That's for regular employees. I think it's $5.63 for tipped employees when that applies. But what it would do is take it up by September 30th of this year, it would go up to $10 an hour. And then by September 30th every year after this year, it ratchets up another dollar until hitting that $15 an hour by September 30th of 2026. So I just wanted to mention that. So again, this year up to 10, that's the floor. Next year 11, and so on until $15 September 30th, 2026. So if anyone asks you, or if that, I hope that's helpful to you in some way. Our certainly last thought or desire would be that that affects folks negatively. We know there's impacts of this, and again, not advocating what I've just mentioned, but just wanted to explain how that scale works on the minimum wage, in case that affects you. So a few other things, we're actually about to roll into one of our what we call sales tax holidays. I just want to give a few budget highlights that we approved. The governor just signed this, I think it was in Pensacola the other day. He signed the tax package that we approved for the year. And so as you all know, we have what's called the back to school sales tax holiday. That's as we approach school starting in August typically, and I'll touch on that one in a second, but the one that comes up next week, in fact, actually, I'm sorry, not next week, is this week. It starts May 28th this week, at the end of the week through June 6th. So it's a 10-day disaster preparedness sales tax holiday, May 28th through June 6th. And that's where you can get tax-free disaster preparedness supplies like flashlights, radios, batteries, food storage, coolers, things of that nature, and also generators priced at $1,000 or less. So I think before we might have only done a 7-day, but we decided to go ahead and do a 10-day this year as we, if you can believe it, rolling into official start of hurricane season here in the next week. But that's something that we wanted to maintain in the budget. So that's something that you can take advantage of coming up. And then a new one that we have that I'm really excited about is what we call the Freedom Week sales tax holiday. And this is not only given the title is freedom, it's going to be July 1st through July 7th, not just because of Independence Day and 4th of July, but also because, things are opening back up, celebration of freedom, good stuff in Florida, that type of thing. So you may really be interested in this one. This is a 7-day recreation sales tax holiday from July 1st through July 7th. And it covers admissions to museums, live music events, live sporting events, cultural events, movie theaters, and state parks, not just during that period as far as the event being held, but it's tax-free if you say buy an event ticket for something that's in September or October or anytime through the end of the year. So that's the purchase time that you can get it sales tax free is that first week of July, but the event could be later between now and the end of the year, or between then and the end of the year, excuse me. And then the same thing with fitness facilities. The dues and fees from July 1st to the end of the year are going to be tax free if you pay for it at that time. Also included are outdoor recreation items under certain dollar amounts. There's some limits, but it touches into a lot of things like boating and water sports. That's your canoes, water skis, paddle boards, snorkels, masks, life jackets, things like that. Camping supplies like collapsible chairs, sleeping bags, binoculars, tents, fishing supplies, rods and reels, bait, tackle, and then general outdoor supplies like grills, bicycles, sunscreen, insect repellent, and water bottles, and things of that nature. So again, all of this tax-free July 1st through July 7th as a celebration of Freedom Week in July. And then the one I touched on a minute ago that we're all familiar with, the back to school sales tax holiday, not just 3 days this year, but that's going to be 10 days this year as we head into the back to school time. That will be July 31st through August 9th.
July 31st through August 9th, back to school sales tax holiday. And, I think somebody's mic's on there. Somebody's on there. So for the back to school sales tax holiday, that is clothing items priced at $60 or less, school supplies priced at $15 or less. And, hey, Stephanie, is there any way we can put a mute on over there? Sorry. Not sure. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Hated to do that, but we're getting some feedback there. So on the back to school sales tax holiday, that's clothing items priced at $60 or less, school supplies priced at $15 or less, and then the first $1,000 of personal computers and related accessories. And that one's typical, the way we've kind of done it in years past. So so that's some good stuff that we put in the tax package this year. Some good items there. One or two other budget highlights that I wanted to mention too. We put a historic amount in what it's called the Florida Education Finance Program, or FEFP for short. And that's the formal name for all of the funding that we put into the public school system, K through 12 in Florida. We put in a total of about $22 billion into that program, and that provides an increase in the total of about 315 million over the current year. The new fiscal year starts July 1st, so that's an increase of about $53 per student, which brings the total per student up to about $4,372, which is the highest it's ever been. We put another $50 million into the increase for teacher salary pay increases, because we have a minimum floor now of $47,500 for all full-time classroom teachers. And then there is some federal stimulus funds that have been worked in that we receive so that schools can stay open, students can be enrolled, and then we can remediate learning losses for students if they've experienced that because of this past year. And then we also have some bonuses for our early learning instructors to the tune of about $166 million. So that's a very high level of the pre-K 12 system, or pre-K up to 12. As far as higher education, we did not allow for any increase in tuition or fees. For higher ed, we did not believe it was a good time to consider that. So that's going to stay constant, so we can ensure that higher ed still is affordable for students and Floridians. And we also put quite a bit of money into the transportation work program. We have just thousands of miles of state roads out there that we have to maintain. So there's about $3 billion in state infrastructure. That's also for our seaports, and the total transportation work package is about $9 billion. So it's pretty big, given that we have so many roads and all of that. One other thing I wanted to mention too, as far as just kind of touching into the budget, and this has been an FCMA legislative priority that you have seen if you have followed that or heard about it in the meetings. One of the things that we have taken a position on as an association over the years is a reduction in the business rent tax. And for those of you who haven't heard, the creative way that this was dealt with this year, especially because last year, before we approved the budget and adjourned regular session, we had worked in a reduction, a kind of a small reduction into the business rent tax, which has continued each year since, thankfully Lake, when he was over there, they began doing this. He fought very hard to get this put into place to reduce that. So it was still at about 5.5%. But last year, what I was going to mention is we had to take that out because we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. We didn't want to strip out any tax breaks, but we pretty much removed all of them because of the uncertainty surrounding that in March of last year when the session was adjourning. So what we have now done is, if you heard anything about the online sales tax regarding online retailers, it would be the simple example is, if you go on Walmart.com or maybe even Amazon in some respects, other online retailers, not all of them have been collecting and remitting the sales taxes that are due to Florida when they're doing business in Florida, which has already been in law, but not all of them have been doing that. So it's kind of a fairness issue on the one hand, because if you go into Walmart or your favorite store, you're going to be paying sales tax at the brick and mortar, but you weren't necessarily paying if you use the same retailer online in some respects. And it doesn't matter if it's a Florida-based company. A lot of these are
in fact, out-of-state retailers that are doing business in Florida, but not remitting the required sales taxes. So we put in kind of some extra muscle behind that. And the creative way that actually legislative leadership should be applauded for is the new monies that are expected to come in, because it's not a new tax, it's collection of an already existing tax with sales tax. So there's no increase. Wanted to mention that especially, but the monies that are expected to come in that are higher than what we have gotten in years past will go first to replenish the unemployment's benefit compensation fund, which is what we have been paying out over the past year to those who have lost their jobs or have been impacted by COVID and have legitimately filed a claim to the state for unemployment benefits. And the other good thing about that, and you'll know this immediately as a business person and employer, is that way it doesn't have to hit you hard for your unemployment costs and fees and things of that nature that you might have to pay, because that would be an astronomical percentage increase to you as a business if that were to affect you. So until that fund is replenished back up to the $4 billion that was in it before we started paying out of it because of COVID benefits coming in, claims coming in for COVID, then that has to go in to replenish that. And then after that, this is the part I was going to get to on the main point, is that money will then go to reduce the business rent tax from 5.5% down to 2% immediately, and then we'll keep it down. So that is a very good win right there for businesses. A very creative way to do it. I can't take any credit for that because it wasn't my idea, but I'm a big fan of it, to reduce that. And again, that's a legislative priority that we have pushed for several years as an association. So I definitely wanted to mention that to you. So very good way that that was put together by the leadership and by the members who individually worked on that bill. And that will be in effect here pretty soon. And the governor's already signed that. So that was one big thing. I think the biggest piece of legislation, that one was pretty big that I just mentioned, but the biggest thing, and you've heard about this, I think we mentioned it on some other meetings, is the COVID liability protections that have been put in for businesses. That was the number one thing that we heard from businesses over the last year since the beginning of COVID's impact in Florida is, hey, we need some consideration here for businesses in Florida. And so, again, it may sound like an I probably have very oversimplified examples sometimes, but this to me would be the same way if you and your business, or whether you were in a convenience store, a department store, anywhere like that. My example would be if there is a spill on the floor and you don't do anything to clean it up, and which is, negligent really and kind of willful, especially if you know about it, and you do nothing to clean it up, somebody slips and hurt themselves, there's probably going to be an issue pretty quick. But if you are making every effort to take care of the situation and have all your safety protocols in place and do everything to protect employees, customers, everybody like that, then you shouldn't be worried about somebody showing up at your door and handing you papers and telling you you're going to have legal issues because of it. Now, does that happen sometimes? Yes. But how I'm relating it to the COVID situation is, especially because, we have no idea where people are before they come into businesses, where, coming and going all day, who they've been around, what they've been doing. And before COVID, you might could pick up if somebody had a cold or had something going on, but, for the most part, you don't know if you're not, near them or talking to them or whatnot, or if you don't know them, especially. So in the case of COVID, we needed to put protections in to where if companies, businesses, whomever are following the protocol, doing everything they can to keep customers safe and employees safe, they should not be afraid somebody's going to show up and take them to court or through the legal system because somebody said, oh no, I caught COVID and it was at the Gate gas station or Nordstrom or so-and-so's office or manufacturing company or what have you. So that was a huge priority of the governor. That was something that everybody got behind very quickly. Most everybody got behind very quickly in Tallahassee, and it affected not only businesses, educational institutions, but also religious institutions, healthcare facilities, which are kind of in their own ballpark too, because of the health concern, but we still put in some protections for them as well. We have folks out there, I know some, some too, I'm sure, that would love to have a field day with things of that nature from a legal perspective, but it's just wasn't good for us to leave our businesses wide open for liability issues and all of the headaches that go along with it. So that I'm very pleased to say was passed. The governor's already signed that one very quickly. In fact, that was the first bill he signed this year after we passed it. So we're trying to look out for our businesses in that regard. Um, Also related to COVID, there was an emergency management package that we approved that related to what you may have heard referred to as COVID vaccine passports. And where this came in was a follow-up to an order the governor had done probably about maybe a month and a half ago or so, if I'm getting the time right. Might not be exact, but in that ballpark. And that was basically saying that in order for not in order for, but for you to be able to go into a business that's open to the public to do business in Florida, any business entity doing business in Florida cannot require proof from someone coming in, a customer, patron, or whomever, from coming in if they don't show proof of a COVID vaccine. That was something the governor was also very adamant about. I personally support that same thing. If someone wants to get vaccinated, fine. We're not getting into that. That's not what this was. It's limiting where folks can come in if they have not received a vaccine. Now, you'll notice I said customers and patrons. We did not tell businesses if they wanted to put policies in place. It was on them if they wanted to do that related to employees. And in saying that, I'm not advocating. I'm just telling you what we did and didn't do. But for customers and patrons, that is not a requirement for entry. And any business doing business in Florida, and it includes the cruise lines too, that was one we had to work through as well. They cannot require that as a condition of entry. Now, most cruise lines, and I know there's some educational institutions, there are some proofs of immunizations and vaccines and things that they've had historically. This one just applies to COVID, so it didn't erase other procedures that have been in place before, but specific to COVID, that can't be a requirement for entry for a business in Florida for you to go in. And that's kind of the high level on that one. Just a few other things quickly before we open it up to questions. One I'm really excited to tell you about that directly relates to what we're doing is manufacturers and businesses that support manufacturers too, is I had the opportunity to sponsor a bill this year that specifically related to workforce development. As you all know, CareerSource is one of our good partners at FCMA and works with us very closely on workforce development. And one of the things that we worked on was some changes in the workforce development system, much broader than CareerSource and that in particular. But one of the big things was, are we making sure as a state, through our community colleges, through our technical programs, and through everything that we're doing to try to help the job seeker and the student when they come out of high school or when they come out of the technical college or get ready to go into the workforce, whenever that is, are we really, one, being accountable with taxpayer dollars, but two, are we really helping them with good certifications, good, licensing and all of those things that's going to help them not only get a job, but keep a good job and be on a good, steady career path to help them, to help their family eventually, or at the time, if they have one, all that. Are we really doing what we should be doing? If you don't know, we get a handsome amount of dollars from the federal government every year through what's called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, to the tune of several $100 million. And so we can show all of these inputs that are going in as far as the number of programs, the number of dollars that are going in. But one thing we have not been able to show adequately is, how many folks are getting jobs? How long are they staying in jobs? How are we helping those that may be in a lower social or income bracket get on their path to self-sufficiency, things of that nature? And so we have put in a lot of good new accountability measures, number one, but also some structural changes to make sure that we're being accountable with dollars. We modeled a lot of what we did in this package, which kind of grew over time. It started as a 60-page bill. I think when we got done, it was about 120 pages. But let me assure you and put you at ease, it didn't grow government as it was doing that. We did put a point person in the governor's office to oversee it, but the bulk of the bill was to make structural changes, more accountability, give the governor the ability to ask the federal government for waivers on certain things so he would have more flexibility in making sure the programs are adequately functioning and things of that nature. But what I was going to mention to you about Texas, and this was amazing to me when I heard it, Texas put in a very unique approach to this. One thing they did a few years ago was they said, okay, when you come out of a technical school or technical program, if you are not able to find a job within 6 months of coming out of that program, you are eligible to get your tuition refunded from the institution. And when I first heard that, I thought, oh boy, this is definitely going to cause some concern. But if you can believe this, here's the kicker. In the 6 years that Texas has had this program in place, they have only had to refund tuition one time in that 6 years. And here's the reason why. The institutions, the programs, the colleges, and all of those who do these programs, they are allowed to set the eligibility criteria for the students, for the future workers or current workers that are going through these programs for, for retraining or development. They're allowed to set the criteria, which will include good attendance standards. They have to meet with a counselor. They have to attend career day events. They have to demonstrate not only that, they have skin in the game, but they have to demonstrate that they're serious about it, that they're looking for a job, that they're serious about the program, so that when they come out, they are almost 0% chance, 0% likelihood of not getting a job out there because they've been a serious student or program participant. And then the other thing to follow up alongside of that, or to go alongside of that, is that we have told the institutions, or we're now telling them, and the programs, that we want to make sure that the programs that we're offering, while many of them can, all of them can give you a certificate or give you something to show for completing it, is that really going to be the best thing for that participant to where it's hooked up or linked to a good job that is waiting for them on the back end of that? And so I know we have folks on the call that can articulate everything I've just said much better because they're the experts. I'm not trying to in any way do a one-up because I'm very much a layman on these on this type of thing, but got immersed in it as we worked on this bill. But I was very glad to have the opportunity because this can very well help our job seekers out there. And Florida, with many entry points in its workforce development system, some of our folks out there are confused. Do I go to CareerSource? Do I go on employflorida.com? Do I call the school? What do I do? So we've tried to make this a no wrong door entry approach and put these other things in place to help the student, help the job seeker, help you as a business be able to know that when these graduates or completers of these programs are coming out for certain jobs that are out there that you may have a need for, that they're ready to go and that they're certified and everything. So there'll be some working through some of the details as we go along. I've tried to condense it to not ramble too much with it, but that's the high level for you just to have knowledge of that, and some other good things that were worked in that package as well. We put a focus on higher education through STEM measures that we have historically done. We put in some fee waiver programs that would expand access to higher ed. One of those is a tuition deal that would encourage state university students to enroll in programs that are linked to high demand jobs like STEM. And also we are trying another unique approach where we kind of call it a buy one, get one free, where if you buy one upper level course, then you'll get one free. And that's a way to try to stimulate the interest there and get more students engaged, and ultimately to help meet our workforce needs that all of you know that we have out there. And also worked in for veterans, some of our non-traditional students and active members of the military. They can get one free online course plus a tuition discount on an online education course if they're enrolled in one of our state online baccalaureate programs. And non-traditional students are those who have not been enrolled in a post-secondary institution for more than 5 years. So we're trying to put a draw on that as well. So that's kind of a sum up of most of what I had. I guess the last thing I would mention is you may have seen in the news yesterday, the governor signed what we call a big tech transparency bill, and that's putting some more standards in place with regard to the social media platforms. And this was a balancing act because you have, on the one hand, the very valid argument of, not going in and telling outfits what to do, or businesses, whether it's social media or any other business, but you also have the unique nature of social media and all sorts of things that are tied into it now, like really the livelihood of a lot of businesses and individuals out there that may be on their own doing business related things, or even businesses like yours that are out there, and many other concerns that we have out there related to that. So it's a very unique dynamic when it comes to that. And so the thing that we were experiencing, especially over the last year or so, is there were, different users. I'm not just talking about celebrities or high level folks, but a lot of, individual folks, of course, a lot of political things tied into that. But there were a lot of other things too, to where we were seeing what really amounted to censorship there. And it was falling outside the confines of some federal laws and some state laws that we have in Florida on accountability for some of those things. So what we did not do was go in and say, well, you can't remove someone from your platform that you run because it's your business, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, whoever. We didn't tell them they couldn't do that. But what we said was you need to be more transparent to where if you're going to do this to someone, you need to give adequate notice. And if someone is essentially treated unfairly through this process, then there is a cause of action that now exists in Florida through what the governor signed and what we passed, that you can then hold the companies accountable. And there's not just a, oh, well, we're guiltless and everything. So I'm not picking on any platform. I use both of the ones I just mentioned myself for, for personal things and for things related to public service. And so I'm not in any way knocking that, but there had to be some changes made for accountability and to protect folks out there, whether it be an individual user that's just, the average person out there, or whether it be someone who is doing it in an official capacity or for a business or what have you, because many users, do it for different things. So that's kind of what that was. If you saw that yesterday with that bill signing that was done in Miami. And I think that kind of wraps up the big things. I want to make sure it's 10:32. We still have a little time left here. So thank you for listening. I've talked a long time. I appreciate everybody's engagement and attention. Happy to open it up to any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, Clay, this is David Selleck.
Hey, David.
Hey, the first step towards tort reform that you addressed a little bit ago, and I categorize it as first step towards tort reform. Do you think there's good intentions in Tallahassee to move that to the next step after this piece? I mean, is that how we're going to get there, or is it just every step's going to be a battle?
Well, very relevant, very good question, David. So what I would say is, and Lake has experienced this too, what I've noticed the past 5 years, and I know it existed before my time starting over there, is there are, number one, very strong competing interests on this subject on both sides. And number two, the question is always pretty much every year, well, is something going to take place related to tort reform? And that's where those actors then enter in and start to battle out with, basically hammering leadership in both the House, the Senate, and then in the governor's office too, to try to say, here's what's okay, here's what's not okay. We don't want it to start at all. We do want it to, and all of that. So the short answer to your question is, can there be more? Yes, absolutely. Would I be open to that? That's also a yes and an absolutely. But I don't mean but as it's not going to happen, but you also have those competing interests that fight very hard each year to try to move it. The others try not to move it. So will it happen? I don't know. I hope we'll see more. And that's something that was going on much farther back than before this COVID bill came up, which was a good step. And thankfully, because of the current situation, we had more momentum on being able to do it. I'd be open to farther steps in that regard so we can protect our businesses on it. Whether it happens or how it happens, you don't know until the bill gets filed. And that's something we have to continue to work on for our businesses. Other questions? Anybody has?
Clay, you're doing a great job, on it. And I know a lot of people probably may still be thinking through some questions, but while they're
Lake, we lost you a little bit. Sounds like
so
there you go. You're back, Lake. There you are.
this is messing up on me altogether here.
We heard you a little bit.
Try this. I'm halfway in between. Is that got it?
We couldn't hear you for a minute. Now you're back.
Now you're silent.
Hello.
I'm not going to be able to speak. Something's going wrong with my system here. It's all messed up. So my apologies to everybody. So I'm sit back and listen. My apologies.
Can you hear us now, Lake? No. Okay. Well, again, happy to answer any other questions. Let me say this too, and if anybody has one, again, we still have a few minutes here. Anytime that anyone needs anything, I just covered a very few topics that we took up this year. We probably voted on 200 to 300 bills. this year. And so there's a lot, even more were filed. And in an average year, we have over 1,000, maybe 1,500 bills that are filed. Most of them don't make the cut at the end. And even some that get out of the House don't get out of the Senate. Some that get out of the Senate, not the House, and so they both have to gel together before they can go to the governor and become law. So that's just part of the process. But anytime anybody needs any information, I know we've already said this and Lake has always said this before my time here, if we can ever be of help, ever get anything you need for explanation or detail, or if there's anything we can work on, even on an individual level, please let us know. Happy to work on that. And number one, we definitely will continue to push the good priorities of FCMA. But number two, if you have any, again, personal need, or an employee does, even your family or anything like that, if there's ever anything on the on that front, let us know. And and we're happy to help. Now, in saying that, I'm a limited government guy. What I didn't just say was the government's here to help. I wasn't saying that. I'm saying we can help if there's a a service related thing, or if it's something legitimately that the state needs to help with, or or something of that nature. The other thing I would ask you too is, if you think of any ideas that we need to do for policy changes, please let me know also. And a lot of times this process, and Lake knows this too, is very much driven by leadership's agenda. And when I say agenda, that's not always bad, because we saw a lot of good policies come out this year. But if you have any idea on how we can make the process better, I would ask that you let us know as well, so we can take those ideas over there. And I'm happy to present anything that that anyone thinks could help us as a state and as businesses. So, Lake, are you back with us?
I think I'm back.
Okay.
I'm not sure why my system is just part of it's working. I could hear everything that was going on, but obviously you couldn't hear me. But Clay's done a great job over there, and I was just basically commenting that if there's any feedback that you want to let us know, or to let Clay know, specific and direct. But I think the real question is, next year, with our association, we've traditionally had our legislative days over there, which we're looking at in January of next year. Clay, what is your feeling on moving forward? Are we going to be opened up full throttle again, having meetings back over there, or should we continue to have a pause?
No, I think it's a good plan, especially given that that's several months out. We were over there last week for a few days for special session related to the a gaming compact that the governor had signed with the Seminole tribe, and so everything was open. We had been pretty much masked up and limited on the meetings back during our regular session in March and April, but last week everything was open. So, in answer to your question, Lake, I would anticipate that unless we see some wild resurgence, and it may even have to be, I hate to say it like this, but even more than what we've experienced over the past year. And again, I'm not making light of it at all, but unless that happens, I don't see there being the same restrictions that we've just seen, especially in light of leadership and the governor very strongly saying that we want to do everything we can to keep Florida open. And in fact, some of the things that we have just passed did not say that things can't be limited if they need to be in the case of a future emergency, but the presumption is that we need to keep things open in the form of schools, businesses, other institutions. And we've just seen such a detrimental impact on other states. I don't need to tell all of you, you've seen the same thing I have, but with the coverage. But anyway, we need to be open. In answer to your question, I think the planning is good to plan to actually physically go, and we're probably going to get overwhelmed. It was so quiet in the Capitol this year, and I miss the interaction. Some of them might not have. I miss being around everybody, but I think it would be good to plan that late. And if something changes, we'll certainly communicate that to everybody.
Great. By the way, I don't know if everybody knows, but Clay's running for the Senate seat that is coming open. Many of you have had a chance to get to know Aaron Bean. Aaron is termed out and will be leaving office in 22. Clay is running, and he's done a great job, and I know he's going to be a good senator in times going forward.
It's like, Lord willing. Thank you. And Lake, by the way, we didn't plan this, but Lake's running for the House as well, again, too. Nobody better to do that. Big shoes to fill. I'm still cleaning up a few things from when he was there before, but mostly everything's Just
They
kidding.
leave dirty. No, wait a minute. That wasn't dirty shoes.
No, we're dirty. No, the lake is too. So, but we could. I know I speak for Lake too. We couldn't do it without the support of the membership. So thank you to each of you for your support of what we do and for all you do for not just the association, but for what you do for your business, for your people, and for Jacksonville and Northeast Florida. And and we couldn't do it without you. So, and we're always available.
Absolutely.
If you need anything.
If I may just take a quick FCMA moment at large here, just to let everybody know